Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Worlds Beyond Time, Sci-Fi Art of the 1970s by Adam Rowe with a foreword by Vincent D. Fate. So this is what the cover looks like. It's a little bit of a bigger book and it is an art book. So I'm just going to give some brief thoughts on the book overall and what made me want to pick it up and read it. And then we're just going to get into looking at some of the great art inside because I know that's why you guys probably clicked on this video. So this book kind of reminded me in a nostalgic way of my hometown library. My hometown library in the adult section when I was a little kid, I remember seeing all these what I thought of as fantastic or fantastical sci-fi and fantasy books with covers that were very interesting and colorful and bright and called to me. And those made me want to read those books when I got older. Obviously at that time I wasn't old enough to understand or appreciate those books, but eventually I did. And it just reminds me of that time looking at those books in the library and thinking one day I want to read that book because the cover is very, very interesting. I love those old sci-fi covers. I think they're very interesting, but picking this book up, I wasn't really sure how much I knew about 1970s in particular, covers from sci-fi books in the 1970s or sci-fi art from the 1970s. So I was intrigued to learn more and I figured at the very least I would get a good collection of sci-fi art to look at, to read through, and to enjoy. So this book is exactly as it says. It is an overview of artists and maybe popular themes and ideas and styles that were explored during the 1970s, primarily in the form of book covers on books that were published in the 1970s or stories that were published. So the way the book is set up is we have introductions to each chapter, and what the chapters will look like this. There's art on one side, the chapter on the other, so the abstract, surreal, and otherworldly, and then they just jump in, and every page gets about, we do have the introduction to the chapter, and then every page gets about, every artist gets about 2 pages, maybe 4 pages if they also get the continuing pages, but as you can see, we just have the artist, a blurb about them, and then some of their key works. So you're not going in depth with any of these artists, but that's okay. You kind of expect that. You're covering an entire decade of sci-fi art, all the artists that were influential, all the artists that were working during this decade. You can't hope to hit them all, and the ones you do hit, you're only going to be able to showcase a highlight reel of their best work. So I don't think I'm necessarily upset with the highlight reel style, and I do think they cover a wide variety of topics. This one's planets, explorers, and space travel. And these 2-page sections can be either artists or artist teams or a concept. For example, this one is cryosleep. So a concept that might be explored or explored in the art in particular. Or here's another one, gunfights in space. And I think that makes it interesting because you're not just going through an encyclopedic list of artists and artists and artists, but instead we also get in ideas and stories that might be interesting or might be worth checking out. So with that being said, I'm just going to start showcasing some of the more interesting art I found in this. This is my personal opinion. And if you have read this book, please leave the pieces of art that you thought were really interesting in the comment section below. So let's start with page 82, if you're following along at home, Skull Planets. I thought this was so cool. I don't think I've actually seen any of these on covers. Now it might be because I'm reading more modern sci-fi, perhaps, and we don't use this anymore, I'm not sure, but I like the concept of skull planets, and especially this one here where it's like human skulls in a ring. I don't know why, I think it's a very, very fun concept. Maybe not very pleasant to start out with, but fun. Then we have 76, which talks about Mars and how Mars, thanks to a mistranslation, was initially, or in popular imagination, was believed to be kind of a wet area that potentially supported a lot of life. And that's where we get a lot of these cool art pieces. This, I believe, if my understanding is correct, it was never actually really scientifically taken seriously. Scientists really knew quite early on that there were no canals of water with tons of teeming life on Mars, but it didn't stop it from going into public imagination a little earlier from the 1970s, but some of this reminds me of Lee Brackett's work where she wrote about, not Mars necessarily, although I think she did write about Mars too, but Venus, and Venus was like this swampy area just because we hadn't, I guess, visually penetrated the clouds around Venus, so it was kind of a mystery, but I did like the idea of a wet Venus, or wet Mars for lack of a better term. Obviously Mars does not look like this, but it is fun to dream and think about. Next is pages 110 to 113. These are skeletons in space suits. I thought this was just a cool, interesting idea, and it makes the reader think what happened, what went wrong, because this is probably not where the Space Explorer, I'm trying to hold all these up, where the Space Explorer wanted to end up. Now I'll flip to page 113. This one I thought was super cool. Make sure I'm getting it in frame. This was some super cool art. This is number 6, Angus McKee's 1976 cover for the year's best science fiction, number 8. I just really liked this one. This is probably one of my favorite pieces in the entire piece of work. I do have to say there is credit for all of these pieces of art. They're in these sections to give you some more information about what you're looking on. There is one minor complaint where sometimes the text section, as in this section here, would call out art that wasn't necessarily displayed. And so I would be looking for the art discussed here and it wasn't displayed, but I got over that problem pretty quickly. I just accepted that they were going to discuss some pieces of art that weren't going to be displayed. Next is page 145. I really like, this is Plants, Animals, and Alien Life is the chapter, so we have this weird looking thing. I like aliens. If there's going to be aliens in a sci-fi book, I'm probably going to have a good time. And as we just go through the chapter, we just see really interesting aliens. I think aliens kind of broadens the artistic possibilities because you're not confined to just how humans look or how humans react, although that's a whole, clearly has enough stuff, enough ideas, enough content from just humans, but expanding to alien life really lets you explore what could be. There's a whole section on just cats in space, which I thought was really interesting. And it reminded me of a series that I'm sort of reading. I'm reading as I have time. It's this Honor Harrington series, and she has a cat that she has in her spaceship. So it just reminded me of that when I saw that section. There's a whole section on cats in space. So if that's your cup of tea, page 146 might be where you want to start. Page 156, we do dip into a little bit of the paleo art. So it's not necessarily designed to be scientifically accurate the way that I feel like it should be when I say the word paleo art, where we're trying to depict something, but it still is paleo art. It's art of dinosaurs, and I think that could be really interesting. I didn't expect to see this in here, but some of them were pretty cool, and I did really like this chapter, this section. So if dinosaurs are your thing, or if you're planning to buy this book as a gift and someone likes dinosaurs, you can direct them to page 156, where there's quite a bit of dinosaur art. Finally, probably one of my favorite sections, just from purely personal interest, is the section on mushrooms. I think they look so cute and fun. We have this big one here. The mushrooms are up here in the corner, but we also have these mushrooms that have been converted to houses, which remind me of the mushroom houses in the video game Morrowind. So that's down here. And we have these big mushrooms up here, which are also very, very interesting. All of these mushroom ones just look so fun. As you can tell from just flipping through the art's really interesting. It's really fascinating. I love it. I recommend you pick up a copy yourself. It seems like such a cool and beautiful book that you can just have out for people to flip through, especially if you have people over who maybe read some of the books that are mentioned. It could be a really good conversation starter for people. I think it's just a really fun and unique book. I never would have thought in my head when browsing my library's system online or trying to place holds, like, you know what, I want a book on 1970s sci-fi book cover art. That's what I want to read, but it is what I wanted to read, and so I'm so glad I pulled this off my library shelf in the news section, and I highly recommend that you pick this book up if any of the art or anything else discussed in this review seems interesting to you. If you have read this book, as always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, or if you would like to provide a recommendation, I review all books that are recommended to me that I can get my hands on, so please leave those in the recommendations in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.